Welcome to the 700 Club. Let's go over to the CBN newsroom for today's top stories.
Gordon, we begin in the Middle East, where the Israeli Defense Forces and security services launched a major counterterrorism action overnight in the Palestinian city of Jenin. As Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem, the operation is designed to eliminate the infrastructure of terror groups that have carried out a number of deadly terror attacks this past year.
The operation included ground troops, more than a dozen airstrikes, and special forces. One senior Israeli official said the goal of the extensive operation is to end Jenin's role as a sanctuary city for terror. One target was the command center operated by the Jenin Brigade, a group affiliated with Palestinian Islamic Jihad. The IDF said it was a location for weapons and explosives and the hub for coordination and communication among the terrorists. In the past year, dozens of Israelis have been killed or injured by attacks from groups operating out of Jenin. Israel's Foreign Minister Eli Cohen told reporters that many of these Palestinian terror groups are now proxies of Iran.
We are striking the terrorism hub with a great strength. I want to emphasize that we don't have a fight with the Palestinians. Actually, our fight is with the proxies of Iran in our region, which is mainly with the Hamas and the Islamic Jihad, with both are a terrorist organization which financed by Iran.
At least 5 Palestinians have been killed in the operation, with more than 24 wounded, but those numbers are expected to climb. Cohen said the IDF is working to prevent any harm to the local population. The operation is part of a promise by Prime Minister Netanyahu to respond to recent terror attacks, including an incident where 4 Jewish men were murdered at a restaurant and gas station by the Sumerian community of Eli. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Here at home, about 110 million Americans under hazardous weather alerts due to heat and thunderstorms. The heat wave, coupled with the smoke from wildfires, has some warning about the impact of climate change. And the White House has said it would consider a plan to try to dim the sun. Dale Hurd is on this story.
A holiday heat wave in at least 14 states that's moving east has killed more than a dozen people so far. Many are avoiding the dangerous heat by simply not going outdoors.
We're going to be inside all day and keep drinking and eating. That's what we're doing.
Along with the searing heat, some eastern cities are covered in smoke from Canadian wildfires. Experts awarded New York City the world's worst air quality. And there have been wild storms and flooding in the Midwest with winds reaching 100 miles an hour. With some claiming this is what the future will look like because of climate change, the White House announced it's open to studying how to block sunlight to supposedly save the Earth from climate change. Some scientists have proposed dumping calcium carbonate, basically chalk dust, high into the stratosphere to block some of the sun's rays. It's called stratospheric aerosol injection, or SAI. But this video from a German science foundation shows how it could all go terribly wrong. It could also lead to droughts in Africa and flooding in Latin America. After being mocked about the idea on social media, the White House later said it has no such plans. While it is hot, this past June was actually 0.4 of a degree cooler than June last year. And smoky cities from wildfires is actually an old problem in North America. May 19, 1780 was called New England's Dark Day when smoke from wildfires blocked the sun. Theoretical physicist Stephen Koonin, former Undersecretary of Energy during the Obama administration, says the weather data itself shows there is no climate emergency.
Heat waves in the U.S. are now no more common than they were in 1900. No global trends in drought or in floods. Greenland's ice sheet isn't melting any more rapidly now than it was 80 years ago.
And as others would say, it is, after all, July. And Julys are supposed to be hot. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Conservatives are calling Friday's Supreme Court decision in favor of a Christian graphic artist, Lorie Smith, a major win for freedom of speech and freedom of religion. Smith had declined to design wedding websites for same-sex couples with her company 303 Creative because it violated her religious beliefs. Although critics say denying same-sex wedding services amounts to discrimination against LGBTQ+ people, Brad Jacob of Regent University's Law School says that's not the case.
When you look at these cases like 303 Creative, like Masterpiece Cake Shop a couple of years back, what's always true is the vendor has no objection to serving gay customers and doing work for gay customers. They're not trying to exclude gay people. They simply say a same-sex marriage is something that violates my religious conscience, and so I would prefer not to participate in that activity. So Jack Phillips was happy to bake bread and make cookies for gay people. 303 Creative, Ms. Smith is happy to, if you run a motorcycle repair business and you're gay, she'll make you a website. She just doesn't want to make a website specifically for a same-sex wedding.
The ruling could pave the way for protections for people of faith who want to opt out of providing services that promote messages that violate their religious convictions. Turning now to another important story in religion news, studies show that faith is on the decline in America, especially among women. Over the last decade, 16 million women have left the church. One author said to find out why and also to look at what can be done about it. Charlene Aaron brings us that story.
In her book, Reason to Return, Why Women Need the Church and the Church Needs Women, Erica Anderson says many women who leave the church still consider themselves Christian. She encourages those who have been hurt or disillusioned to reconsider what church has to offer.
The phrase that I like to use a lot is the church of your past doesn't have to be the church of your future.
Author and freelance journalist Erica Anderson has spent most of her life in church. While she admits it is far from perfect, she invites women to rediscover joy and purpose in attending. On CBN's Prayer Link, Anderson shared that passion as the motivation for her new book, Reason to Return, Why Women Need the Church and the Church Needs Women.
After seeing some data about how many women were leaving church and showing that women were leaving church at a much faster rate than men in the past 10 years specifically, I knew there was a message that they needed to hear because so many of those women, they're not turning away from God, but they do need an invitation back to faith community.
According to Pew Research, women have grown noticeably less religious over the last decade. The share of nuns among women has risen by 10% since 2009, and the share of women who identify as Christian has fallen from 80% to 69% over that same period. Issues like Church Too, involving sexual abuse scandals, have played somewhat of a role in the decline. A recent article in Relevant magazine points out that a growing number of single women are leaving over that issue. By far, the biggest factor propelling women out of the church is sex. The Church Too movement attested to just how damaging irresponsible handling of the church's messages of sexual purity can be for some women, the article says. Anderson also discovered millions have left for a variety of reasons.
One of the number one reasons is overwhelm, stress, busyness, which you might, immediately conclude like, oh, maybe it's deconstruction or maybe it's people, deconverting. But the truth is that most women that are leaving the church, they are not deconverting. They are not deconstructing. They still value their relationship with God. Many of them are looking for a little bit of guidance, a friend to walk with them.
Guidance found in healthy faith communities that are beneficial for women and their families.
All kinds of benefits happen for you and your family, including better rates of mental health, better relationships, better even physical health. And then your children are also growing up in this really firm faith foundation where they can thrive and are less anxious and less depressed and go into adulthood, feeling confident about who they are and where they are in the world.
Charlene Aaron, CBN News.